What's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of the Man Cave Podcast, brought to you by our good friends from Hy-Vee in Eau Claire. Dan here with you as always. And a quick reminder, a little housekeeping. Don't forget, if you could, please be a friend, tell a friend to follow and subscribe to the Man Cave Podcast, wherever you listen to your podcasts. So like Apple or Spotify, check out our YouTube page. As well, subscribe to that. I hate using the word subscribe because it makes it sound like you have to pay, but you don't have to pay for any of this. And if you got a few seconds, if you haven't done so already, if you could, I would love it. I would really appreciate it if you could give us a 5-star rating and a positive review like on Apple. That way it helps the algorithms out there in the internet world spread the word of the Man Cave Podcast, and other people can find the Man Cave Podcast. So on this episode, it's a tradition unlike any other. It's mock drafts, baby. Mock draft. So I've got my complete first round mock draft, and then my 7-round Packers mock draft. I'll begin by doing my first round mock and then going into the Packers one. So just a couple of notes. I did not mock any trades. I did a couple years ago. And odds are there are going to be trades. It's kind of difficult to forecast at this point. So I'm not doing that. I'm just going straight up as I'm recording this on Wednesday before the first round of the draft. This is how it's lined up right now and where the picks are currently allocated at, especially like when we get to the 7th round. I'm pretty certain Green Bay is going to be moving around a little bit, maybe in the back end. Who knows? But pretty sure they won't start and finish with the same picks that they currently have right now. So, without further ado, let's jump into it. So you can yell at me with what I have mocked here. Now, I don't think there's anything else. Like, I know some other people go, this is what I would love these teams to do, or there's different caveats. This is just a typical mock where I think a lot of it is what I think these teams will do and what they should do. So it's a combination of both, really. So number one, no big surprise, Titans going quarterback Cam Ward from Miami. Titans coming out saying they're not trading it, and I think it's going to be Cam Ward here. So and then the Browns, it's between two people. It's Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. Pairing Abdul Carter with Myles Garrett would definitely give them one of the best pass rushing duos in the league, but I think they go with Travis Hunter. You heard their GM Andrew Berry just last week or so calling Hunter a unicorn type of player, so I think they're going to draft Travis Hunter, which means the Giants, I think, then will nab Abdul Carter from Penn State. I know Patriots, it's been all over the place. For the longest time, it was always mocked as a offensive lineman, and I think it's going to go there. I mean, Mike Vrabel's over there. He wants to run the football. He's old school. He's a physical type of coach, and they need to protect the quarterback. If they want to run the football, they got to improve that offensive line. So I think they go and get Will Campbell, offensive tackle from LSU. Jaguars, again, is another team that's lately been seeing a couple different names out there. One hot name now being attached to the Jags is Ashton Jeanty from Boise State, the running back. But I'm going to stick with what I've had for a while now. Now, I should note, too, I only do one mock draft. It's the mock draft of integrity. So I'm sticking with what I thought was there for the longest time, and that's Mason Graham, defensive tackle from Michigan. I think they've got needs on both the offensive line and the defensive line on the trenches there. I know they got a new offensive-minded head coach coming in. Maybe want to give Trevor Lawrence some playmakers and such, but I got Mason Graham. I think you got to start to build up that front and both sides of the football. So, which means the Raiders here, I think, are a very intriguing team. Could they go quarterback even though they signed Geno Smith? I think, with Shedeur Sanders, there's only a couple coaches that I don't think would be, I don't want to say intimidated, but I think there'd be a couple coaches in this league that could handle or embrace the star power or the noise that Shedeur would bring, and one of them is Pete Carroll. And, of course, we know the connections with Tom Brady and the Sanders family. Tom Brady mentored Shedeur when Shedeur was in high school and such. So, I mean, there's a lot of dots connected there. But ultimately, I think you look at this too. Pete Carroll, what does he want to do? He's a defensive-minded head coach, no doubt about it. He could go defense here, but he wants to run the football. And I think, with them bringing in Geno Smith, get him somebody that you can get the ball to. Ashton Jeanty is my pick there at number 6, the running back from Boise State. Now the Jets with new head coach Aaron Glenn coming in. The Jets, one of their weaknesses the last couple of years has been offensive line. Aaron Glenn's coming over from the Lions, where before they got to this point where they're at, or where they have been the last couple of years, they really invested in their offensive line in the draft and built it up to one of the top units across the NFL. And I think that's what the Jets do with this pick. Going to Missouri, Armand Membo. Panthers, I think, when we get to number 8, I'd throw the Raiders in here too just because. But 6, I guess you could throw the Jets. Maybe they go a couple different routes here. But this is, I think, where the draft really starts to kind of get interesting. Where or what teams do and how it affects the next team or a couple teams down here. And the Panthers are one of those too. They could go edge. They could go maybe a weapon for Bryce Young. They could go a couple different routes here. Corner. I'm going to go Walker, the linebacker from Georgia. There's been some talk, is he a more typical linebacker, like a 4-3 linebacker? Could he play a little edge in a 3-4? Panthers need help on the edge, and it sounds like they view him as an edge linebacker. So Jalen Walker from Georgia is the pick at number 8. Number 9, Saints. Shedeur Sanders is still on the board with the whole Derek Carr talk out there. Will they pull the trigger and get Shedeur Sanders? But I don't think they do. You got Kellen Moore, again, new coach coming in. And you look at his stops as offensive coordinator. Cowboys, you like to throw the ball. Eagles last year, they ran a ton with Saquon. But they still had outside weapons with Smith and A.J. Brown. They got Chris Olave over there. I think they go wide receiver and get Ted McMillan, the wide receiver from Arizona, at number 9. Number 10, the Bears really wanted Ashton Jeanty. I think if there was a team that would trade up to try to get him, maybe trading up in that top 5, maybe trading with the Jaguars or Patriots or somebody, I think it would be the Bears, especially with the offseason that they have had, that they, filled in a lot of needs where they could go in this draft and have a little bit more flexibility. But with Ashton off the board, I think they go tight end and go a little double tight end set with Cole Kmet, and they get Tyler Warren, the tight end out of Penn State. 49ers are a team that lost a lot of talent this offseason. You could go edge rusher, you could go linebacker, you could go wide receiver with Deebo Samuel gone. And, trade rumors always surrounding Brandon Ayuk. But I'm going to go corner. I think they need to get some more. Robert Saleh's coming back to be defensive coordinator for the 49ers. So get him a corner, and I think Will Johnson from Michigan is going to be the selection there. Cowboys. Again, what do the Cowboys do? They could go edge rusher, pair up with Micah Parsons. They could go a couple of different routes. Who knows what the Jones family and Jerry Jones is thinking. But I think they're going to go Matthew Golden, wide receiver from Texas, staying in state to get a wide receiver to pair up with CeeDee Lamb. But wouldn't it be something if there was a pick that I kind of just want to see the reaction? And, it would probably be unbearable during the season and such. It might sound like a lot like the Lakers on the Mothership Talks net, but can you imagine if the Cowboys drafted Shedeur? Oh, man. Dak's numbers would be would be numbered at that point. So, Dolphins, I'm going to go Kelvin Banks, offensive lineman, Texas. They got to fortify that offensive line up there. We know Tua with concussion history and such. They got to protect him at all costs. So I'm going to go offensive lineman, Banks from Texas. Colts, when you look at mock drafts and you look at everything out there, I think this has been one of the most locked up positions in the first round, depending on which guy you have going here. But tight end, it seems like everybody is mocking a tight end to the Colts. So I'm one of them too. Colston Loveland, tight end from Michigan, going to the Colts. 15, the Falcons. All right. I'm going to go edge rusher here. Raheem Morris, defensive-minded head coach. He's got to get better, or his team's got to get better at rushing the passer. So I think they're going to go with Shamar Stewart, the edge from Texas A&M. Cardinals, I think, too, they want to upgrade their pass rushers. This is a draft that's got some good depth with edge rushers and pass rushers. And I think they get the kid out of Georgia, Michael Williams from Georgia. So Williams, the edge rusher from Georgia, goes to the Cardinals. Bengals, they invested a lot of money in the offseason to their wide receivers. Don't know about the Hendrickson ordeal yet, but they need help up front, and I think they get Derek Harmon, defensive tackle from Oregon. I like Derek Harmon a lot in this draft. I don't want to use the word safe, but he feels like the guy that I don't know quite how to, because I feel like safe is kind of used as in a negative sense a lot, but maybe the most polished or solid or consistent, I guess, maybe guy in this draft. Doesn't have like one elite trait. He's just a really good football player. Number 18, Seahawks. They could go wide receiver here too, especially if one of those guys falls down a little bit. I mean, they moved on from DK. They moved on from Tyler Lockett. They got Jackson Smith-Njigba. But they got a new quarterback coming in with Sam Darnold. Maybe they go quarterback here too. But I think, again, they gotta boost up that front. And I think they go Tyler Booker, guard from Alabama at 18. Now you got the Buccaneers coming in at number 19. Where do they go? Some talk, could they go edge? Could they, maybe add a secondary, corner, safety? I'm going to go to the secondary market here for the Buccaneers, and I'm going to go Jahdae Barron, corner from Texas. I feel like when you look at him, he's kind of a versatile secondary member, and I don't know, it's you get Winfield over there too, and you've seen what he's been able to provide for that defense. Barron, I think, is a guy kind of like a Brian Branch over with the Lions, and pairing him up with the Todd Bowles defense just seems like a win-win for Tampa Bay, so I think that's the selection for them. Broncos, they could go wide receiver here too, get Sean Payton and Bo Nix a couple more weapons. Maybe they go defensive side to continue to add there, because you look at the division, you've got the Chargers and you've got the Chiefs that they have to go up against. But I think they get the second running back in this draft. Hampton, the running back from North Carolina, I think is a selection at 20 for the Broncos. We know Sean Payton likes to utilize those running backs. Look at his time during with the Saints, Reggie Bush, Alvin Kamara, et cetera, et cetera. Steelers, I think this is where the slide ends then for Shedeur Sanders. Even if they do bring in Aaron Rodgers, they got to solidify that position for years to come. And again, I mentioned it a little bit earlier when we were on the Raiders. If there was a head coach that I think would be a good fit for Sanders or could handle the other extra PR that would come with it, I think it could be Mike Tomlin in the Steelers culture. I'm sure Dion wouldn't be happy about the slide that Shedeur would be on, but I think he would be ecstatic for his kid to be playing for Mike Tomlin with the Steelers. Chargers, then, I think, they probably wanted one of those tight ends on the board to help out Justin Herbert. Maybe they go wide receiver to build a little bit more depth over there, too. But they lost Joey Bosa. They did bring back Khalil Mack on a shorter deal. But I think they got to get another edge rusher, and I'm going to go Mike Green from Marshall coming in at number 22. Oh, here we go, Packers fans. Number 23. There's an Ohio State running back or a wide receiver still on the board. Do they go offensive line? Do they go defensive line and edge rusher? I'm going to go corner. And I'd be intrigued with this. I'll deep dive into it more when we get to the 7th round. But I'm going to go Maxwell Hairston, the corner from Kentucky, at number 23 to the Packers. Vikings get a safety. Harrison Smith's coming back for a year, but he's getting long in the tooth. So Maxwell Hairston, or I just said Maxwell Hairston, Malachi Starks, safety from Georgia. Texans, they moved on from Laramie Tunsil in the offseason. They got to provide some protection for C.J. Stroud up there, and I think they do that by selecting Josh Simmons, offensive tackle from Ohio State. Rams. They kind of hit the draft last year with some defensive players. Verse, right? Brandon Fisk. I mean, not bad picks. And I think they go defense here again. Campbell, the linebacker out of Alabama, is the selection for the Rams at 26. Ravens. Where do they go here? I think they got to continue to get better on defense, especially in the trenches. I'm going to go Walter Nolan. I mean, Nolan just kind of feels like a Raven type of player, and inserting him into that defense, I think, would be a benefit for both sides here. So Walter Nolan, the defensive tackle from Ole Miss, going to the Ravens at 27. 28, the Lions need another edge rusher outside of Aiden Hutchinson, and I think they go with Nick Scorton, edge from Texas A&M. Commanders, I think they go edge as well. Got Dan Quinn entering his second year, continuing to improve the defense. They made a move to bring in Debo in the offseason, so I think they go with James Pierce Jr., the edge player out of Tennessee. The Bills, I think they need some secondary help as well, so they get a safety to help fill that back end of the defense. They're going to go with the kid from South Carolina, Nick Emenwari. That's the pick at number 30. Chiefs, well, they need to get better in the offensive line as well, and I think they get one of the more versatile offensive linemen in this draft, Gray Zabel, guard from North Dakota State University, can even play tackle in a little bit of a pinch. And then the Eagles, the defending Super Bowl champs, they don't have to go far for their pick. Boston College edge rusher Donovan Ezerowski from Boston College is the final pick in the first round. So that's my first round mock draft. Let's get into the Packers' seven round mock draft. So you know the first pick, Maxwell Hairston, corner from Kentucky, 5'11". There is some concern about his weight, but apparently he's been putting on some muscle and some weight in this offseason. A speedy corner, ran a sub 4.3 40-yard dash, going up against that SEC talent too. Outside corner, he's got some long arms, impressive ball production. He can play in a zone or a man coverage. So the more I watched this kid, the more I was reading some reports about him, the more I liked about him, and add on the fact that he has been gaining some more weight and muscle in the offseason. I like this. I like this pick for the Packers to continue to bolster up that secondary and to get some depth over there and to get a guy who's got some speed to go up against these speedy wide receivers, especially within the Division II. So Maxwell Hairston, corner out of Kentucky, is my first pick for the Packers. Then in the second round, they get their wide receiver. I'm going to go with Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State, the big wide receiver, 6'4", 215 pounds, ran a sub 4.5 40, 4.47. He can play inside, outside, as well, try to create some of those mismatches. And, you know, Packers had a guy just a few years ago, wasn't a top-tier wide receiver, but he performed pretty well with what the Packers want to do. That was Allen Lazard coming out of Iowa State. So Jaden Higgins coming in and being that big wide receiver, that big target for Jordan Love, especially with no Christian Watson for a big chunk of the season, I think is going to be that guy or that selection for the second round for the Packers. I will say the receiver, though, that I think maybe a little too high at 23, although now there's some talk that he could go in there. But I think he's going to be like an early round 2 or somewhere in the 30s that I really like for the Packers. That I don't know if they could trade down a little bit and then maybe get another pick and potentially get that guy. But the receiver I really like for the Packers, and I really like in this draft, the more I was watching and kind of reading some reports, is Luther Burden from Missouri. You know, he's 6 foot, he's over 200 pounds. You know, he's not the fastest dude out there. He's not the biggest dude out there in terms of height. He's just a solid receiver. And I know that, was it Matt Miller that said teams were reaching out to Missouri to send them more film about him coming out of breaks and releases to see his route tree and such, and saw some of that too. And he can do a lot of different things, and I think he would be an awesome fit within this Green Bay offense. But I think he's at that range that maybe 23 might be a little too high, but he's going to be way gone by 54. But if he's there at 54, then I would change it to him. But Packers get their big receiver in Jane Higgins at number 2. Number 3, then the Packers going to get their edge rusher, a guy that was at the Senior Bowl. He has played a ton of games in his collegiate career. Was with LSU, a 4-3, a prototypical 4-3 defensive end. You're looking at 6'5", 280 pounds. Savion Jones from LSU, the big defensive end from LSU. So that's my pick for round 3, number 87 overall. Just a tough, physical defensive end in this 4-3, just a typical 4-3 defensive end. And I think that's honestly what kind of Green Bay needs to add some of that depth over there. I think in the 4th round, the Packers stay on the defensive line, but they get their guy that could help replace TJ Slayton. They need a defensive lineman that can help stop the run, can clog up the running lanes, and that's CJ West out of Indiana. You're talking about a big dude, 6'1", between 315, 320 pounds. So I like this guy, and it's funny because Daniel Jeremiah, when CJ West was at the Combine, Daniel Jeremiah compared CJ West's measurables to one Kenny Clark. Yeah, so there you have it. I mean, a lot of similarities, height-wise, weight-wise, arm length, 10-yard split, a lot of similarities to Kenny Clark. So CJ West is the pick for me at round 4. And remember, too, with these picks, Packers are probably going to make some moves. So I would highly doubt that the Packers are going to start and finish with these same exact ones. But again, I'm not mocking trades in this. Number 5, the Packers, or round 5, I should say. At this point, it's selection 159. I think the Packers get their offensive lineman, and he's a typical offensive lineman that the Packers look at getting. He's a guy that has played at different spots across the line of scrimmage. Left guard, he's played left tackle, spent a lot of time playing interior offensive line, but he could get you some snaps in a pinch, at the tackle or even center position. He can provide that flexibility playing guard and center, and has a little bit of experience playing tackle too. So this is just it screams as a typical Packers offensive lineman with that position versatility. Jackson Slater from Sacramento State. Packers grab another wide receiver in the 6th round, number 198. And remember, the receiver position is going to be interesting after this upcoming season, because you got Romeo Doubs, who's scheduled to be a free agent. You've got Christian Watson, who's scheduled to be a free agent, although that could be depending on how much he plays, if he plays at all this year. But at if looking, I keep saying number 6, round 6, I think they go with a receiver that's got kind of your typical traits, physical traits that you look for in a receiver. Got a little speed there, runs a 4.43 40-yard dash. That's what he did at the Combine. And he's a guy that I think if you read a lot of the scouting reports on, there's been some inconsistency where at times he looks like he is like just a stud, but then there's other times that you're kind of scratching your head, like, where's the consistency part of it? And that's Elijah Badger, the wide receiver from Florida. 6'1", 200 pounds. I just, if he's there, I saw a lot of people too saying he's kind of the underrated prospect or underrated receiver in this draft that he can be a day 3 steal for a lot of teams. So, he also ranked second in the FBS with a 20.7 yards per reception last year for the Florida Gators. Above average ball skills, but again, that prototypical size from a wide receiver standpoint. So Elijah Badger is the pick for me for round 6. And then with the 2 7-round selections, going to go with the quarterback. I don't know what the plan is going to be for Malik Willis after this year because, again, he's scheduled to be a free agent. Maybe the Packers would like to bring in a rookie quarterback and try to mentor him to eventually be the backup to Jordan Love. In this case, Brady Cook, quarterback from Missouri, round 7, number 237th overall is the selection. And then finally, because, we need another offensive lineman. It's not a Packers draft if we at least don't have a couple of offensive linemen. And this is an offensive lineman that, again, provides a little position versatility. Was a tackle at the college level. Some people view him as maybe better suited to play inside, but he is a Wisconsin native, Oconomowoc, Wisconsin native, played for the Hoosiers of Indiana. Trey Wettig, the 6'6", 310-pound offensive lineman. Packers maybe need a little depth at that tackle position when you look at everything currently, how it's kind of constructed and such. So, again, a guy that probably can play multiple spots in the offensive line. And I think this would be a solid pick for the Packers for a 7th-round pick. All right, that's my mocks, my first-round mock and my Packers 7-round mock draft. Now you can reach out to me and tell me how wrong I am or how much you hate it. That's fine. But that's why we do it, right? Just to try to get that one pick right. So, till next time, I'm Dan Casper. Big thanks for tuning in to the Man Cave podcast brought to you by Hy-Vee and Eau Claire. We'll talk to you during the draft and after the draft. We'll do some podcasts during the draft and then obviously some recap podcasts too after the draft is over with. Enjoy the draft. And until next time, I'll talk to you on the next episode of the Man Cave Podcast.